The Norwegian winter clawed at the small, solitary cabin nestled deep within the fjordlands, its heavy snow a thick, muffling blanket against the world. Inside, a single beeswax candle flickered, its fragile light dancing across bare timbered walls, illuminating the quiet, drawn figure of Lena. This was her 11th Christmas Eve spent in utter solitude, a ritual of chosen isolation that had become as predictable as the icy winds outside. Each passing year deepened the grooves of loneliness etched around her eyes, a silent testament to a life lived fiercely apart. Tonight, the familiar ache settled in her chest, a ghost of forgotten celebrations. Then, a sudden, jarring thud against the window pane shattered the quiet. Lena's head snapped up. Against the frosted glass, a pair of dark, luminous eyes stared back, wide with fear and pain. It was a young deer, a fawn, impossibly close, its fragile body trembling, one front leg grotesquely twisted, a jagged wound crimson against its snow-dusted coat. This creature, wild and gravely injured, on a desolate Christmas Eve, sought succor from a woman who had actively shunned connection for years. How could she, Lena, the self-proclaimed hermit of the fjords, now face this raw, urgent call for salvation? And why had it chosen her? Lena froze, her breath catching. Her cabin, her sanctuary, suddenly felt porous, violated by this desperate intrusion. Her first instinct was a fierce, protective urge to withdraw, to pull the thick curtain, to pretend the impossible plea wasn't happening. Turn away. That was her way. But the deer didn't move. Its shivering intensified, a silent testament to its profound suffering, holding Lena captive with its gaze. It was a vulnerability too stark, too primal to ignore. Slowly, Lena moved closer to the window, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. The fawn flinched but didn't flee. Its front leg, caught in the candle's soft glow, was shattered just above the knee, bone protruding, a compound fracture made worse by deep, ragged lacerations from what looked like a struggle through dense, icy undergrowth. The severity of the injury was unmistakable, a death sentence in the unforgiving wild. A wave of internal conflict washed over Lena. Non-intervention. That was the law of the land, the code of the wilderness she revered. Nature healed or it claimed. To interfere was to disrupt, to impose. But this wasn't an abstract philosophy. It was a desperate, shivering creature, bleeding on her doorstep on the coldest night of the year. A forgotten pain, sharp and swift, pricked at the edges of her awareness, a faint echo of loss that had driven her to this remote existence. She had built these walls for a reason. To care, to connect, was to risk, and she had sworn off risk. Yet, the fawn's eyes, soft and dark, held an impossible trust. She stepped back from the window, her mind racing. She could not touch it, not yet. But she could not simply let it perish either. She moved with a strange, hesitant urgency. From her stores, she retrieved a bowl, filling it with fresh cold water from her well. She found a handful of dried lingonberry leaves and a small portion of rolled oats, items usually reserved for her own sparse diet. Her movements were careful, deliberate, each step a small betrayal of her long-held principles. She opened the cabin door a crack, the frigid air biting at her face. The fawn tensed, watching her. Slowly, she knelt, placing the bowl and the forage just beyond the porch light, a tentative, almost apologetic offering. She pulled her hand back quickly, retreated into the cabin, and closed the door with a soft click. The fawn hesitated for a long moment, then, with a pained effort, hobbled closer. It lowered its head to the water, drinking slowly, meticulously, its ears twitching. It nibbled at the oats, then settled back into the snow, its body curled, still facing the cabin. A silent, watchful presence, it remained through the long, frigid night. Lena watched from her window as dawn broke on Christmas Day. painting the sky in soft, bruised purples and greys. The profound quiet of the morning was broken only by her own conflicted thoughts and the deer's soft, rhythmic breathing in the snow. The decision to help was still unmade, but a line had been crossed, irrevocably. The dawn light offered no absolution, only stark clarity. Fawn remained, a huddled mass of vulnerability in the pristine snow, its breathing still shallow, labored. Lena watched, the warmth of the cabin feeling like a betrayal. Her internal war, a silent battle between ingrained non-intervention and an urgent, undeniable empathy, resolved itself with the painful clarity of a winter morning. She could not, would not, turn away. Her movements were deliberate, each step a carefully calculated risk. She didn't approach directly. Instead, a series of careful, almost ritualistic actions began. First, a section of tarpaulin, salvaged from her woodpile, became a crude lean-to, angled to block the biting wind. Then, old blankets and straw were gently pushed towards it, with a long branch offering insulation. Fawn watched, its dark eyes following every motion. But it did not flee. Its weakness was too profound. Its trust, born of sheer desperation, an unspoken plea. Lena retrieved her carving tools, not for wood, but for survival, a clean cloth, an antiseptic spray usually reserved for her own cuts, some pain relief from her limited first aid kit. She moved slowly, speaking in a low, soothing murmur, a forgotten rhythm from a life she thought long buried. She cleaned the deep lacerations on Fawn's front leg, the bone visibly misshapen, a compound fracture staring back at her. The deer flinched, but endured, its body trembling under her distant touch, a testament to its raw will to live. The physical toll was immediate. Hours bled into afternoon, then evening. Lena's back ached. Her hands, usually so steady with a chisel, now shook with a mix of cold and adrenaline. Doubt gnawed at the edges of her resolve. This was a wild creature, gravely injured. The severity of the break, the risk of infection, the sheer impossibility of keeping a wild animal alive in her remote cabin without proper medical facilities. She saw the haunted look in Fawn's eyes, mirroring her own fear of loss. Was she prolonging its suffering? Was this selfish? A memory of another kind of pain, sharp and sudden, pricked at the edges of her mind, a ghost from her past solitude. But then, as she leaned in, offering more water, Fawn lowered its head, and for the first time, its soft ear brushed her hand. It was a feather-light contact, yet it cracked something open within Lena. Her fingers, calloused from wood, trembled slightly as they met the surprisingly soft fur of its forehead. Fawn didn't pull away. Instead, it leaned into the touch, a deep, shuddering sigh escaping its throat. In that instant, a barrier broke, a profound connection forged in shared vulnerability. This creature was not just a wounded animal. It was a living, breathing testament to resilience. And in its eyes, Lena saw a flicker of her own unspoken yearning. Later that evening, the cabin felt strangely charged. The silence, once a comfort, now held the soft rustle of straw and the deer's gentle breaths. Lena made a reluctant, crackling satellite phone call, a lifeline she rarely used. "Wildlife rescue," she muttered. "I have a wounded fawn." The voice on the other end, a Dr. Ingrid Dahl from a distant veterinary clinic, was pragmatic, seasoned, and initially skeptical. "A wild deer, madam, in your cabin, that's highly irregular. And a compound fracture. The prognosis is usually very poor for wild animals." Lena explained, her voice gaining an unexpected firmness, detailing the makeshift care, the deer's surprising compliance. Dr. Dahl promised a follow-up call, a tone of professional curiosity replacing her initial doubt. By the next morning, the first small signs of improvement emerged. Fawn ate the oats Lena offered with less hesitation, drinking more deeply from the bowl of melted snow. Its gaze, though still wary, held a new, quiet acceptance. That flicker of resilience, so faint yesterday, now burned a little brighter. It reinforced Lena's commitment, hardening her resolve against the skepticism of the outside world and her own lingering fears. Lena, exhausted but fulfilled, watched Fawn resting more comfortably in its makeshift shelter. She knows the true battle is just beginning, but she also feels a spark of purpose she hasn't felt in years. The fragile spark of purpose Lena felt the night before solidified with the morning light. She watched Fawn, still nestled in its makeshift shelter, accept more melted snow, its movements stiff but resolute. The quiet hum of her cabin, usually her solace, felt expectant, almost tense. A few hours later, the distant crunch of tires on packed snow announced the inevitable. Lena stiffened. Her heart hammered a quick rhythm against her ribs, a mix of apprehension and a strange, defiant protectiveness. A worn, forest-green vehicle pulled up, a logo for a regional wildlife service emblazoned on its side. Out stepped Dr. Ingrid Dahl, a woman with kind, weary eyes that missed nothing, and hands that spoke of years spent mending broken things. Ingrid moved with a no-nonsense efficiency, her gaze sweeping over Lena's cabin, then fixing on the makeshift enclosure. "Lena Soreness?" Her voice was steady, professional. "My colleague mentioned your call. A deer, you said?" Lena, typically reserved, found her voice. "A fawn. Its leg. Compound fracture, I think. Deep lacerations." She stepped aside, allowing Ingrid a clearer view. "It's been here since Christmas Eve. Wouldn't leave." Ingrid approached cautiously, observing Fawn through the gap Lena had created. Her expression remained unreadable as she took in the deer's still form, its injured limb painfully obvious. "A bad break," Ingrid murmured, her brow furrowing. "And a wild animal. You know the regulations, Lena, non-intervention. And if intervention, well, a wild deer with an injury like that, the prognosis is usually bleak. Euthanasia is often the most humane option." Lena met Ingrid's gaze, her own resolve hardening. "I know the regulations. I've lived by them for years." Her voice was quiet but firm. "But this one, it came to me. It has fight. It's been accepting water, some forage. It even allowed me to clean the wound from a distance with antiseptic. It's not giving up." Ingrid turned back to Lena, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Lena, a solitary woodcarver, knew the subtle cues of the forest, yes, but to assess a compound fracture and administer first aid to a wild fawn, it was unprecedented. She saw the unwavering conviction in Lena's stance, the deep, unspoken plea. After a long moment, Ingrid sighed. "All right, let's take a closer look. But this is strictly temporary, Lena. We have protocols." The air thickened with professional seriousness. Ingrid, with Lena's help, carefully sedated Fawn, ensuring the deer remained calm and safe. Lena moved with an instinctual grace, anticipating Ingrid's needs, holding Fawn's head gently as the veterinarian cleaned and expertly splinted the limb. Her movements precise and swift. Blood, iodine, the smell of animal and antiseptic filled the small space. Ingrid worked, her brow furrowed in concentration. Lena's hands were steady, comforting Fawn, whispering soft assurances. It was a tense, focused scene. The only sounds the rustle of materials, Ingrid's soft instructions, and the gentle breathing of the sedated deer. When the splint was secure, Ingrid stepped back, wiping her hands. "You did well, Lena. The wound was clean, remarkably so. But this is just the beginning. The bone needs to knit. Infection is a constant threat, and we still have the elephant in the room." She paused, her gaze serious. "You cannot keep a wild animal, Lena. Not without permits, not without a specialized facility. The penalties are severe." If fawn recovers, it will need to be rehabilitated, returned to the wild, or, if that's not possible, transferred to a sanctuary, or, yes, euthanized. This is not a pet, Lena. We both know that. Fawn stirred, the sedative beginning to wear off. Its eyes fluttered open, dark and liquid. It shifted, pain evident, but then its gaze found Lena. It nudged its head against Lena's hand, a soft, trusting gesture that Ingrid observed with professional curiosity, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that had formed. "It trusts you," Ingrid noted, a hint of something unyielding in her voice softening. That much is clear. She then laid out the fragile agreement. She would monitor Fawn's progress temporarily, providing medical advice and oversight, but the ultimate decision regarding Fawn's long-term future remained. It was a reprieve, not a solution. Ingrid gathered her equipment, her form a silhouette against the snow-covered landscape as she prepared to leave. She gave Lena a final appraising look. "Keep me updated, Lena. Every day. This isn't just about the deer anymore. It's about you too." Dr. Dahl left, her vehicle's crunching tires fading into the vast quiet. Lena stood alone in the cabin, a mix of gratitude for Ingrid's help, anxiety for the uncertain future, and a renewed sense of responsibility swirling within her. Fawn looked at Lena, and Lena felt an overwhelming sense of commitment, ready to fight for this creature. The vast quiet swallowed Dr. Dahl's departure, leaving Lena with the reverberating hum of her own commitment. Fawn, sensing the shift, nuzzled her hand, a silent promise. Weeks bled into months, each day a careful ballet of healing and trust. Outside, the world transformed. January's iron grip slowly loosened, giving way to February's softer snows, then March's tentative thaws. Inside, Lena's cabin became less a sanctuary of solitude and more a dedicated infirmary. Dust settled on her beloved carving tools, half-finished pieces gathering a thin film of neglect. Her wood, once vibrant under her knife, lay forgotten. For Fawn's needs now dictated every waking hour, every deliberate movement. Lena became a physical therapist, a nutritionist, a silent confidant. She improvised gentle exercises, guiding Fawn's stiff leg through slow, careful repetitions. She'd use soft wool scarves to support Fawn's weight, encouraging it to take tentative steps, first across the straw-strewn floor, then a few more. Her hands, calloused from carving, now ministered with an almost surgical tenderness, massaging the injured limb, checking for swelling, cleaning, and redressing the wound Dr. Dahl had tended. These were intimate interactions, her breath warm on Fawn's coat, the deer's soft rumbling a constant presence against her chest. Lena often caught herself humming, a forgotten lullaby, a sound that hadn't escaped her lips in years. Her isolation, once a heavy cloak, now felt like a chosen purpose, a sacred space where only she and Fawn existed. It was a different kind of alone, not empty but full, defined by the raw urgency of another creature's survival. Sometimes, in the quiet hours as Fawn slept, Lena found herself staring into the flickering firelight, memories rising unbidden. She remembered the bitter silence of her 11th Christmas alone, the way the snow outside had seemed to mock her carefully constructed isolation, the pang of grief, the one that had driven her to this remote existence after a loss too profound to name, still resonated. But now she saw a parallel. Fawn too was healing from a deep wound, a physical scar reflecting Lena's own unseen emotional one. Both had been broken. Both were finding their way back. Fawn, in turn, began to communicate in ways that astonished Lena. A soft nudge of its head meant hunger, a flick of its ear, contentment. A low, drawn-out sigh was a plea for comfort, a quick stamp of its good hoof, a warning. Dr. Dahl, during her infrequent but thorough checkups, observed this burgeoning language with professional awe. "I've never seen such trust," she admitted, her voice softer than usual. "You've done more than just mend a bone, Lena. You've forged a bond." Then a bitter February morning brought a setback. Fawn, attempting to shift its weight, stumbled, and a sharp, keening cry tore through the cabin's fragile peace. Lena's heart seized. A new swelling bloomed around the healing fracture, hot to the touch. The fear of loss, raw and primal, clawed at Lena's throat. She knelt, her hands trembling, the weight of her commitment pressing down on her. Had she been too ambitious, too hopeful? She spent the next few days in a relentless vigil, administering pain relief, adjusting Fawn's splint, whispering reassurances into its soft fur. It was a battle against infection, against despair, against the terrifying fragility of life. Through a difficult night, Lena held Fawn, its feverish body pressed against hers. The cabin was cold, the wind howled, but Lena's grip was steady. She whispered promises, stories, the names of forgotten constellations. She knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that Fawn was no longer just a deer she had rescued. It was a part of her life, a reason to be. Outside, the spring snow began to melt, fat drops tracing silent paths down the window pane. Outside, the spring snow began to melt, fat drops tracing silent paths down the window pane. The first whispers of spring green softened the stark landscape, and with them, a new tentative strength bloomed within Fawn. One crisp morning, as the sun broke over the eastern ridge, painting the fjord in hues of rose and gold, Lena watched. Fawn, usually leaning heavily on the brace, shifted its weight. A wobbly, uncertain front leg lifted, then settled. A second, more deliberate attempt. The brace, once a crutch, swung uselessly as Fawn took a single, unassisted step, then another and another. Lena gasped, a sound swallowed by the vast quiet of the cabin. She pressed her hand to the window pane, tears blurring the image as Fawn, still tentative but resolute, traversed the small enclosure. Every slow, deliberate movement was a testament to impossible resilience, to the culmination of Lena's tireless nights and Fawn's fierce will to live. It was a monumental moment, a silent, breathtaking celebration that stole the breath from Lena's lungs and settled a profound, unfamiliar joy in her chest. With Fawn's steps came a renewed rhythm in Lena's own life. Her hands, once constantly tending to splints and salves, found new purpose. She returned to her wood carving with an intensity she hadn't known in years, but her art was irrevocably changed. The stern, stark lines of her previous pieces gave way to flowing curves, the grace of muscle beneath hide, the delicate tilt of an ear. Fawn's image, its spirit, infused every chisel stroke. A small, elegant deer emerging from a block of birchwood, its head held high, became a tangible representation of her own healing. Her art was no longer just a craft, it was a conversation, a quiet language of transformation. Word of the extraordinary bond, a wild fawn nursed back to health by a solitary carver, inevitably spread. One afternoon, a modest, sturdy man named Bjorn Kristofferson, a local journalist and wildlife enthusiast, arrived with an air of respectful curiosity. He spoke softly, observing more than questioning, his camera remaining respectfully silent. He noted the way Fawn watched Lena, the trust in its deep eyes, the silent communication between human and animal. "It's remarkable, Lena," he murmured, his gaze sweeping over the cabin, then to Fawn. "A wild spirit, broken, found salvation here, an impossible connection." His words, quiet and sincere, solidified for Lena the external reality of what had felt like a secret, private miracle. Soon after, Dr. Ingrid Dahl paid another visit, her professional demeanor softened by a visible awe. She examined Fawn, marveling at the strength returning to its once shattered leg. "Lena," she said, a rare smile gracing her lips, Its recovery is beyond anything I could have hoped for, a true testament to your unwavering care." But the warmth in her voice faded as she continued, her gaze falling on the open woods beyond the cabin. "However, Lena, Fawn is ready for the next phase. The wild calls. We need to begin preparing for its return." The words hung in the air, a bell tolling a bittersweet truth. Lena's joy, so recently profound, became instantly conflicted. She was overjoyed by Fawn's progress, a deep, resonant happiness that vibrated through her very bones. Yet the thought of separation, of Fawn leaving, felt like another impending loss, a new, sharper vulnerability she hadn't anticipated. The echoes of her past isolation, of the pain that had driven her into this solitude, felt like a cold breath on her neck. That evening, a quiet celebration unfolded. Lena spontaneously lit extra candles, their flames dancing like tiny, hopeful stars against the deepening twilight. She prepared a small special meal for herself, a simple stew simmering on the stove, the aroma filling the cabin with warmth. Fawn, sensing the shift in atmosphere, rested near the open door of its enclosure, its eyes reflecting the candlelight. Lena sat on the floor, sharing a moment of quiet reverence, acknowledging their shared journey, their mutual salvation. The silence was no longer heavy, but full, rich with the unspoken language of connection. Outside, the last vestiges of winter had vanished. Lena watched Fawn graze near the cabin, stronger and more vibrant. The landscape outside was turning green, reflecting Lena's internal shift. She knows that Fawn is ready for more, and so is she. Summer deepened its embrace around the fjord, painting the slopes in vibrant greens that mirrored the burgeoning health and spirit of Fawn. Each morning, Lena watched Fawn's forays into the surrounding woods grow bolder, longer. The young deer, now stronger, more agile, would disappear for hours, only to reappear at dusk, a testament to its returning wildness. Lena felt a fierce pride swell in her chest with every graceful bound, a quiet celebration of its resilience, yet a cold tendril of anxiety snaked around her heart. Every rustle in the leaves that didn't resolve into Fawn's familiar shape, every bird cry that seemed a little too sharp, tightened a knot in her stomach. The cabin, once a haven of solitary peace, now felt like a fragile barrier against a world Lena knew was both beautiful and brutal. Guided by Dr. Dahl's pragmatic counsel, Lena had begun Fawn's rewilding training. They started subtly, hiding small piles of forage in the nearby woods, encouraging Fawn to use its senses, to move away from the direct hand-feeding. Lena taught it to recognize her warning calls, low, guttural sounds that mimicked nature's own alerts, designed to make Fawn wary, not reliant. She'd leave doors ajar for longer periods, tempting Fawn with the vast, scented expanse of the forest, minimizing the human dependency they had painstakingly built. It was a careful, agonizing dance between protection and preparation. One crisp afternoon, a shrill, frantic bleat echoed through the trees. Lena, carving knife forgotten, sprinted to the edge of the clearing. She saw Fawn, ears flattened, backing away from a larger, dominant stag, its antlers already impressive. A tense standoff, a quick, sharp skirmish as the stag lunged, forcing Fawn to dart deeper into the undergrowth. Lena's breath hitched. Her heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Fawn was unharmed, but the raw, untamed reality of its future struck her anew. Another time, she found paw prints, too large for a fox, pressed into the damp earth near Fawn's favorite grazing spot. A predator. The world out there was unforgiving, a constant cycle of threat and survival. How could she, Lena, send her precious Fawn back into that? Was it an act of cruelty or the purest form of love? She found herself locked in a relentless internal debate. Was it selfish to crave Fawn's continued presence, to want its soft muzzle against her hand each morning, its quiet breathing a comforting rhythm in the cabin? Or was it cruel to keep it, to stunt its wild spirit, to deny its true nature for her own companionship? The line between love and ownership blurred, then solidified, then shattered again, a painful recurring pattern in her thoughts. What was freedom for Fawn, if not the open wild, even with its dangers? But what was freedom for Lena, if it meant the aching emptiness Fawn's departure would surely bring? Dr. Dahl visited a few weeks later, observing Fawn's confident stride, its alert eyes, the way it now occasionally ignored Lena for a particularly tempting berry bush. "She's ready, Lena," the veterinarian stated, her voice gentle but firm as they sat by the open cabin door, Fawn grazing just out of sight. More than ready. Keeping her now, it would be detrimental. For her. She needs her herd, her own kind. She needs to live the life she was born for. Dr. Dahl explained the long-term implications, the loss of natural instinct, the potential for Fawn to be too trusting of humans or too confused to thrive among its own kind if kept. "It's our ethical responsibility, Lena, despite the cost to your heart." Lena nodded, silent tears tracing paths down her weathered cheeks. The words echoed a truth she already knew but fiercely resisted. The preparation began with a heavy heart. Lena started dismantling elements of Fawn's enclosure, the makeshift fence she'd erected, the protective netting she'd hung. Each post pulled from the earth, each length of wire coiled, felt like a deliberate severance, a symbolic untying of their shared tether. She worked slowly, methodically, the ache in her chest a dull throb. Every action was heavy with meaning, a silent acknowledgement of the inevitable. The summer began its slow fade to autumn, and with it, the countdown to goodbye. Lena sat alone by the fjord as dusk settled, watching Fawn move gracefully through the distant trees. She felt a profound ache, understanding that the greatest act of love might be letting go, but not yet accepting it fully. The golden light of late autumn spilled across the fjord, painting the familiar landscape in hues of bittersweet farewell. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, yet a mildness softened the day, as if nature itself offered a gentle embrace for the coming sorrow. Dr. Ingrid Dahl stood by Lena's gate, her expression a mix of professional resolve and quiet empathy, beside a somber wildlife officer named Carl. Their presence was a silent acknowledgement of the irreversible decision. Lena, her hands trembling slightly, approached Fawn, who waited patiently in the last remaining section of the enclosure. The deer's coat gleamed, a testament to months of diligent care, its injured leg now strong, agile. This was it. Lena knelt, her fingers tracing the soft fur behind Fawn's ear, then down its smooth, warm neck, a quiet, deeply emotional farewell. She buried her face briefly in its flank, inhaling the unique wild scent she had come to know so intimately. "Be safe," she whispered, her voice thick with unshed tears, words of love and encouragement meant only for Fawn. "Be free." Her touch lingered, committing every contour, every pulse beneath the skin to memory. Fawn leaned into her, a final tender act of trust. Lena rose, stepping back slowly, her gaze locked on the deer, her heart a raw, exposed nerve. Dr. Dahl gave a quiet nod to Carl, who unlatched the gate. The heavy latch clicked, a sound that echoed Lena's heart. The gate swung open, a gaping invitation to the vast, untamed world. Fawn hesitated. Its dark eyes, deep pools of wildness and familiarity, met Lena's. A moment of profound emotional tension hung in the air, a silent question passing between them. Then, with a graceful, almost imperceptible shift, Fawn turned, took a single, powerful bound, and disappeared into the golden woods. No lingering look back, just gone. A raw physical ache bloomed in Lena's chest, spreading quickly, consuming her. The space Fawn had occupied was now empty, impossibly so. The cabin, which had hummed with the quiet rhythm of care for months, felt hollow, cavernous. The silence that descended was not the familiar, comforting quiet of her solitude. It was deafening, a vacuum sucking the air from her lungs. Profound grief, sharp and immediate, washed over her, chilling her to the bone. Dr. Dahl offered a hand, a sympathetic squeeze, but Lena barely registered it. She nodded, managed a tight, fragile smile, then turned, walking slowly back into the suddenly desolate cabin. The first night alone was a torment. Lena struggled with the silence, the absolute, crushing absence. Every creak of the old wood, every rustle of the wind outside seemed to mock her. Memories of Fawn flooded her mind, the soft breathing, the hesitant first steps, the shared quiet moments over a cup of tea. The heavy weight of her past isolation returned, a familiar cloak, but now it carried a new, sharper edge of loss. She felt not just alone, but profoundly severed from a connection that had become her anchor. She lit every candle, as if to ward off the encroaching emptiness, but the light only seemed to emphasize Fawn's absence. Sometime before dawn, unable to sleep, Lena walked out, not towards the open gate, but to the spot where Fawn had rested during the early days of its recovery. Her boot scuffed against something hard in the thawing earth. She bent, fingers brushing through fallen leaves, and found it, a small, perfect shed antler from when Fawn had been a younger buck, discarded months ago, half buried. A tangible piece of their shared journey, a small memento left behind. Lena gripped it, the smooth, cool bone, a grounding presence in her hand. Lena stood at the edge of the woods, staring into the silent trees where Fawn disappeared. Her tears fell freely, but beneath the grief, a quiet realization began to form. She is changed. The shed antler, cool and smooth in her hand, became a talisman, a heavy anchor in the vast, empty sea of her cabin. The days following Fawn's release blurred into a quiet struggle. Lena moved through the familiar rooms like a ghost, her routines feeling hollowed out, stripped of their purpose. Coffee cooled, untouched. Her carving tools lay dormant, the wood blocks on her bench seeming to mock her with their stillness. The silence that had once been her chosen companion now felt like a crushing weight, a profound absence that echoed Fawn's every vanished hoofbeat. She would stare out the window for hours, a restless ache in her chest, half expecting, half dreading to see a familiar silhouette emerge from the deep woods. The cabin, once a sanctuary, now felt more like a tomb. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, a shift began. One crisp morning, as she walked towards the fjord, her gaze fell upon a single, resilient fern unfurling from beneath a snow-dusted rock. She saw the intricate lacework of frost on a branch, the determined flight of a raven against the pale sky. Fawn hadn't simply gone. Fawn had returned to this wild, magnificent tapestry. Its freedom, Lena realized, was not a loss but a continuation, a vibrant thread rejoining the vast, interconnected whole. She began to understand the profound beauty in Fawn's wildness, its natural independence, and recognized that its greatest gift had been to remind her of her own. A few weeks later, the phone, usually a silent sentinel, rang. It was Dr. Ingrid Dahl. "Lena, just checking in. Fawn was spotted a few days ago near the old logging road. Moving well, looking strong. You did good, Lena, more than good." The words were a balm, yet Lena's voice still wavered as she confessed the quiet desolation. "It's so empty, Ingrid. Like a piece of me is missing." Dr. Dahl's response was gentle, firm. "That emptiness, Lena, that's what love feels like when it has to let go. But it also means you connected. You lived, truly lived, for something outside yourself for the first time in a long time. That's not something to run from. Her words resonated, planting a seed of new purpose in Lena's heart. With renewed, if tentative, resolve, Lena returned to her workshop. She picked up a fresh block of birch, feeling the cool, firm grain beneath her fingers. This time, her mind wasn't clouded by absence, but illuminated by memory. The deer she began to carve was different. Less about static form, more about fluid movement, about the grace of a creature poised between worlds. Each chisel mark, each sweep of sandpaper was a meditation, a way to process her grief and celebrate the indelible bond she shared with Fawn. Her art became a profound dialogue, speaking of connection, of wildness, and of an unexpected tender grace. Word of Lena's unique story, subtly shared by Dr. Dahl, began to filter out. One afternoon, a small group of young adults, students from a local environmental studies program, arrived, their guide having arranged a brief visit. Lena, still preferring her quiet solitude, met them with a reserved but welcoming demeanor. She spoke not of taming fawn, but of respecting its wild spirit, of the delicate balance between intervention and allowing nature its course. She shared insights into fawn's healing, the resilience of the natural world, and the profound lessons learned at her cabin window. The students, respectful and engaged, listened intently, their questions thoughtful, their admiration clear. Lena, while maintaining her personal boundaries, felt a flicker of connection, a subtle opening she hadn't anticipated. Later that week, she found herself walking the path to the precise spot where fawn had first appeared on that long-ago Christmas Eve. The last vestiges of winter snow had vanished, replaced by emerging green shoots. She stood there, the shed antler still clutched in her hand, remembering the terrified, desperate eyes, the broken leg, and her own hardened, protective heart. The place, once marked by suffering, now felt sacred, a silent testament to transformation. She realized fawn hadn't just healed a leg, it had mended something deep within her. The fear of loss, though still a familiar whisper, was now overshadowed by a quiet, profound gratitude for the unlikely journey they had shared. Lena returned to her cabin, the late afternoon light softening the edges of her workspace. She picked up her tools, the woodblock now taking on a vibrant life, a powerful depiction of a deer infused with grace and movement. There's a newfound lightness in her movements, a quiet smile on her face. Her solitude is no longer a burden, but a space for creation and reflection. The months after Fawn's release, after the quiet triumph of her art, carried Lena forward with a momentum she hadn't known in over a decade. The deep greens of summer faded into the fiery hues of autumn, then slowly softened to the muted tones of early winter, bringing with them the familiar chill that once settled deep into her bones, mirroring her isolation. This year, however, the approaching holiday season, with its short, dark days and the promise of heavy snow, felt entirely different. It held not the old dread, but a burgeoning sense of anticipation, a quiet, almost fragile hope for something new. For the first time in memory, Lena prepared for Christmas not with resignation, but with intent. She gathered pine boughs from the snow-dusted forest, their scent filling her small cabin with an earthy, invigorating perfume. Strands of dried berries and cones adorned the rough-hewn beams, and in a place of honor on her mantelpiece, nestled among soft moss, sat a small, exquisitely carved wooden fawn, its form delicate yet strong, a silent testament to the journey she had undertaken. This Christmas was to be a celebration of a different kind, a quiet honoring of the life that had taught her to live again. She even found herself drafting an invitation, a hesitant message sent to Dr. Ingrid Dahl, extending an offer for a quiet, shared meal on Christmas Day, a gesture that, a year ago, would have been utterly unthinkable. Christmas Eve arrived with a gentle snowfall, coating the world in a pristine, hushed blanket. Lena stood by her window, a mug of steaming tea warming her hands, watching the flakes descend. The silence outside was profound, broken only by the soft sigh of the wind through the pines. Then, in the deepening twilight, a movement near the tree line. A group of deer emerged, their dark forms stark against the white. They moved with a wild grace, pausing to browse on snow-covered shrubs. For a fleeting, breath-held moment, Lena's heart leapt. One particular deer, slightly larger, with a certain tilt to its head, caught her eye. It moved with an assured confidence, its gait strong, and Lena, with a wave of profound joy and acceptance, allowed herself to believe it was fawn, thriving, fully wild, integrated into its herd. The image resonated deeply within her, a visceral confirmation of what she had always hoped for. Later that evening, by the warm glow of her fire, Lena found herself compelled to write. Not a formal letter, but a heartfelt message, addressed in her mind to both Dr. Dahl and, in a way, to fawn itself. Her pen moved across the page, articulating the profound impact the deer had had on her life. She wrote of the raw vulnerability that had shattered her carefully constructed walls, the arduous journey of care that had reawakened her capacity for compassion, and the bittersweet release that had, paradoxically, filled her with a new, enduring connection. "You didn't just heal, Fawn," she wrote. "You taught me how to feel again. You opened a heart I thought was forever closed, and for that, I will be eternally grateful." Through the act of writing, and through the quiet contemplation of the season, the meaning of alone profoundly redefined itself for Lena. She realized, with a clarity that brought tears to her eyes, that she was not truly alone anymore. Her connection to fawn, forged in crisis and sustained by love, had expanded her capacity for connection to the world around her, to the rhythmic pulse of nature, and most importantly, to herself. The cabin, once a fortress against sorrow, was now a sanctuary filled with cherished memories, a space where reflection deepened, not diminished, her spirit. The silence that had once echoed her emptiness now comforted her, a gentle hum of gratitude. Christmas Day dawned bright and clear. Lena spent the holiday with a sense of quiet triumph and profound gratitude. The small meal she prepared felt abundant, the stillness of the cabin comforting. Each flickering candle cast dancing shadows that seemed to tell stories of resilience and hope. Lena sat by her fire on Christmas night, a serene smile on her face. The cabin is warm, filled with soft light. She feels a deep, abiding connection, not just to fawn, but to the interwoven tapestry of life, forever changed by the wounded deer. The serene smile that graced Lena's face on that quiet Christmas night lingered, a testament to the profound shift within her. The warmth of the fire, the soft glow of candles, had woven a new tapestry of belonging in her small cabin, not just with the memory of fawn, but with the interwoven pulse of life itself. Months unfurled after that Christmas, the deep snows of winter gradually yielding to the vibrant greens of spring, then the long, bright days of summer, and finally, the golden hush of autumn again. Lena's life, once a rigidly constructed bastion against connection, began to unfurl subtly, gracefully. Her wood carving, once a solitary act of quiet contemplation, now resonated with an almost palpable emotional depth. Pieces that depicted the intricate power of the fjord's wild creatures, or the gentle, watchful eyes of a deer, began to find their way beyond her cabin, whispered about in nearby villages, even drawing inquiries from a small gallery in Bergen. She didn't seek fame, but the recognition was a quiet validation, a sign that the beauty she found in the world and in her own healing resonated with others. Her cabin, nestled among the pines, now felt less like a fortress and more like a quiet harbor, Occasionally, a snowshoe hare would seek shelter beneath her porch during a blizzard, or a lone raven, caught in an unexpected storm, would roost safely on her eaves, watched by Lena with a knowing gaze. Her presence in the community, though still reserved, carried a new weight, a quiet wisdom. She occasionally spoke with Dr. Dahl, not just about wildlife, but about life, their professional bond having deepened into something akin to friendship. Lena even found herself, on a rare sunny afternoon, joining a small local initiative to monitor the health of the deer population, offering her keen eye and intimate knowledge of the local terrain. She moved with purpose, her movement strong, her spirit serene. One crisp autumn morning, a year almost to the day after Fawn's first appearance, Lena was gathering firewood, her senses attuned to the whisper of the forest. The air hung with the scent of pine and damp earth. As she straightened, her gaze drifted to a distant clearing, sun-dappled and quiet. There, grazing peacefully, was a small herd of deer, and among them, one moved with a familiar, almost imperceptible favoring of its front left leg, a subtle, proud limp that only Lena would recognize. Its coat was sleek, its eyes bright, its form powerful and free. A wave of profound, exquisite joy washed over her, a recognition that vibrated through her very core. It was Fawn, healthy, strong, fully integrated into its wild family. It was a fleeting glimpse, a silent acknowledgement across the vastness of the forest, before the herd melted back into the shadows. Lena lowered her basket of wood, her hands trembling slightly, not with sadness, but with a rush of bittersweet triumph. Loving, she realized, truly loving, meant accepting change, embracing freedom, even if that freedom led to separation. Her understanding of love had expanded beyond possession, beyond companionship, into something boundless and pure. Her solitude, once a cloak of protection, was now a conscious choice, a fertile ground for creativity and a deeper, more profound connection to the rhythm of nature. It was no longer an escape from pain, but a chosen space for a full and rich life. Her heart, once shuttered and guarded, now beat in harmony with the wild, carrying the enduring legacy of a wounded fawn. She paused, breathing in the cold, clear air. The healing, she mused, had come not from her own efforts alone, but from that unexpected connection, a desperate, raw call for salvation answered with reluctant, then profound compassion. True love, she understood now, sometimes meant allowing what you cherish to be free, to thrive in its own world, knowing that the bond once forged could never truly be broken. It was a quiet truth that settled deep within her, a bedrock of peace. A final shot of Lena, strong and serene, gazing out over the vast, beautiful fjord. The sun sets, casting long shadows. A single, healthy deer crosses a distant ridge, a symbol of wildness, freedom, and the enduring transformative power of connection. Lena smiles, a look of profound peace and gratitude on her face.